Watching TV has changed over time. Streaming has become the new norm. That's why Golden State Media Concepts television podcast dives headfirst to the world of cord cutting. Want to be on the loop of what's hot in Netflix? Or if it's not a preference, what about original shows in Hulu? We've got you covered. Join us as we fill in the blanks and talk about movies to stream and what show you should be binging. This is the Golden State Media Concepts television podcast.
Greetings, good people of the planet Earth and the known universe. You're listening to GSMC's television podcast. This is your Captain Keith, and once again, this is the Golden State Media Concepts television podcast, and today's podcast is about more of the new series, The Passage, and The Punisher Season 2, which just became available on Netflix not too long ago. Yes, I binged to watch Season 2 last weekend, and it was lovely. So we will be talking about both shows today. So let's get to it. Let's start off giving you some more about The Passage. So, when we last left off, I think we talked about the first two episodes. So I'm going to go in a little bit more detail with episode 3, with The Passage. This episode is called "That Never Should Have Happened to You." It's directed by Jason Ensler. Once again, this is a new Fox hit series that comes on Mondays, and looks like it's based off of novels by Liz Heldens. And the writers on this are Justin Cronin, and let's see. Justin Cronin, based on novels by, created by Liz Heldens, written for television by Peter Elkoff, executive story editor Kate Erickson, and staff writer was Vanessa Gomez. Okay. So once again, this TV series stars Mark Paul Gosselaar, if I'm saying his name right, who plays Agent Brad Walgast, and Sanaya Sidney, who plays Amy Belafonte. So, and Jamie McShane plays Dr. Tim Fanning, who's basically like the chief bad guy. All right, so let's let me get to this episode. I'm going to give you the synopsis, and then we'll talk about the episode in particular. So Brad makes a deal with Sykes and Richards to stay with Amy at Project Noah as they begin testing the virus on her. So basically, yeah, like I said, they catch up with Amy and Brad. And, well, so what happens, Brad and Amy are in this house. Brad comes out and he tells Amy to leave, to escape. And guns are pointing at Brad. And before all this happens, Amy and Brad made a promise to each other that they would never leave each other. Very touching. So the girl comes out on the porch and they see her. And then, and when she comes to Brad, he's like, he goes, why are you here? And she said, because we agreed she said, because we agreed to never leave each other. So very, very touching scene. So at this point at Project Noah, they're both at the lab. And they separate the two of them. They give Amy her own room. And the doctor, let me see. So I can pull up another screen so I can go back over the cast listing. Dr. Major Nicole Sykes, Dr. Sykes, played by Caroline Shikazi, or Shikazi. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right. Forgive me if I'm not, Miss Shikazi. Or I just call you Miss Caroline. So she talks to Amy in Amy's new room, and she's like, "Hey, everything's gonna be fine." And Amy's like, "Why am I here? What are you guys doing?" And she's like, "This doesn't seem like it's legal." And Amy's a smart kid, and she's like, "Look, basically, there's this epidemic flu or bird flu or some type of flu," she states, "that is going to threaten the world, and you may be the only person who can save the world. So we're going to run some tests on you. And, you might be the one little girl, who can save the world." So she puts that on Amy's shoulder. And still, Amy's just like, yeah, okay, yeah, whatever. So, but Amy knows that she has to comply for the most part. So now, before Dr. Sykes comes into the room, when they're trying to get, she has assistants inside the room trying to, work with Amy, get testing, get her blood work, and Amy's just having a fit, yelling and screaming. She's like, no. She goes, don't touch me, get away from me. And she's causing all kinds of problems. So when Dr. Sykes comes in and talks to her, she's like, Amy, what's wrong? And she's like, I want to see the agent. Talking about Brad. It's like, okay. So they go get Brad. And the person who gets Brad is Clark Richards, who's working for Project Noah. He's the head security guy. He's the hired gun. So he goes to get Brad, and Brad was working for him. He's like, I need you to come with me. He's like, well, what are you going to do? Just come. So they talk, and he basically gets Brad, and he brings him to Amy. So Amy sees him, and she gives him a big hug. And so now before they got to the facility, when they're in the big little truck that's carrying them to the facility, and they're in the back, they're sitting next to each other, and Brad tells Amy, so, we agree we're gonna escape all this, right? She's like, yeah. So I want you to pay attention and pay close detail to everything they do, what they're talking about, count steps, look for exits. So when Brad comes into Amy's room and he starts, he gives her a hug, and she's like, I counted 25 steps from here to the exit. And she lets Brad know that she was paying attention, and she did what he told her to do. And he smiles, and they talk. And Dr. Sykes comes in there, and she's got the big needle that she's going to shove into Amy's arm, which basically the needle is Dr. Fanning's basically his vampire blood. Okay, let's be real with the people. That's what that needle is. So I'm going to give you a good detail of this episode so you can see where it's going. So you can be even more intrigued with the show. I'm excited about the show because it's going to. Yeah, well, we'll talk about why I'm excited about it later in a few more minutes. So Dr. Sykes pulls the big needle out, and I'm a grown man. I'm looking at this needle. I would have been scared. Although I've given blood before, so I don't trip off of needles. But the point is, it was very intimidating. So Brad looks at Amy. She's holding his hand, and he tells her, "Just look at me." So and she does, and she takes the needle like a champ. And when Brad sees Amy in the room, he sees a Band-Aid on her neck, the back of her neck. He's like, what's this for? When I see the Band-Aid, I'm thinking, oh, did they already, inject her? And she's like, they put a chip in me so they can monitor my levels. And Brad's like, oh, no, so they can make sure they can track you, in case you escape. That's what that really is. So I'm like, so I get why they're testing a child, because they think a child may... because she's young, her immune system is a lot stronger and more adjustable and adaptable to the virus that is the vampire blood. I get that, but when I see the Band-Aid on her neck and she says they put a chip in me, I'm like, she's not a dog. She's not a... So it kind of bothered me a little bit, but for the story's sake, I get it. Of course, you're going to put a chip in everybody who's your, these patients that you have. Amy's the only one who's not on death row. She's a kid, with no family anymore. Although we don't know who her father is, but that's a whole other conversation. So basically, she takes the shot. So there's no side effects. She feels fine. So we don't see anything yet. Now Amy finds out that her next door neighbor is their most recent death row prisoner who agreed to the clinical trial. And this is also the same actor who was in Ozark on Netflix. I'll tell you his name in 1 second. And that's the thing. Like back in the day, I knew all their names. I don't see him listed here. Huh. And that's odd. Yeah, I don't see him, but he's the most recent prisoner on death row who agreed to the experiment. So he's next door to Amy. So when they're bringing him back, Amy sees him and they smile at each other. So after she takes the shot when the assistants leave the room, they have to type a code. Amy notices what the code is and she tells Brad. So they keep it to themselves. So, which is fine because that way Brad can come in and out of her room. But Brad's like, okay, hey, we're a package deal. What are you doing to this girl? So, and of course, Clark Richards is upset. He's like, why'd you all of a sudden grow a conscience? Well, because it's a kid and it's an adorable kid. And whether the kid was adorable or not, it's still a kid. You just don't, we protect the children. That's what we're supposed to do. Just saying. So the fact that Clark Richards, the head of security, even said that to Brad was just kind of disturbing. So also what happened in this episode, they had a meeting because in episode 2, one of the security guards was poking at and harassing one of the clinical patients. Her name is Babcock, pretty blonde lady who's real quiet. So now that all these other patients have Dr. Fanning's vampire blood in them, they all have reacted a little differently, but they're all mostly quiet and they look all veiny in the face. So people think, oh, they're stupid. They don't have any life. They're like zombies. All they do is eat blood, blah, blah, blah. I wonder whoever invented that whole phrase, blah, blah, blah. I love that. Just saying, it just cracks me up. But like, was somebody actually saying blah, blah, blah? Or was it a comedian? I don't know. Anyway, I digress. So everyone thinks that all these vampires or all these clinical patients who have a predilection for blood taste now, who are sitting in these see-through cells, everyone thinks, oh, they're just like zombies now. You can say whatever. So this one guy, the security guy, he was just messing with Babcock, the pretty blonde lady. He was just harassing her. And he had a colleague with him. He decides to throw the colleague's badge into her cell on the floor. And the colleague was really scared, and the colleague kept saying, leave her alone, stop it. Here's a guy who has a conscience and knows that, hey, you don't pick on patients and you don't harass women. So, it's nice and refreshing to see. So he, the security guy was just a jerk. He threw his colleague's badge, into the cell on the floor. He's like, go get it. So, and the colleague is scared of the lady. He's scared, but what he doesn't know is the lady likes him because he's sticking up for her, because she can sense that he knows that what the security guard is doing is wrong. So he gets the badge, she doesn't do anything. So that makes the security guard get more cocky and pull his face up to like these bars. Okay, I'm sorry. So she doesn't get put in the see-through see-through cell yet. So right now, so she's in regular prison bars. So the security guard puts his face through it to taunt her, and she just bites his neck and just kills him. So she waited for him to come close so she can take care of him. So she knew exactly what was going on. So in this episode 3, the executive staff, Dr. Sykes and gang, are having a meeting about what to do. They see the camera footage of what happened, and then they ask the colleague what happened, and the colleague's like, well, the other security guard was a jerk. Censor. That's not. He used the D word, but for this podcast, he called him a jerk. All right. He's like, he was mean and he kept always harassing her. So now they hear that. So Clark Richards is like, well, we should put her down. Just incinerate her. And Dr. Sykes is like, no, I don't want to kill any patients. Especially, if this guy was doing something he shouldn't do. So now my thing is, when you see them reviewing the video footage, so basically you see you see it from a certain angle. So I guess I can understand why they wouldn't necessarily see that he was taunting and harassing her. But we, the viewers, we saw that. So when he got killed, we were like, oh, well, that's what you get. That's how I was thinking. So just saying. So the meeting for So for whatever reason, somebody else on the staff is like, yeah, we probably should incinerate her. We should kill her. So the colleague who, Babcock, that's the blonde lady's name, who bit the security guard. The colleague, I think he might even be a janitor. He's basically a janitor / security guard because he's always wearing these overalls. I'm not quite sure. He basically is like, he's in tune with Dr. Fanning. Dr. Fanning speaks to him. Speaks to him all the time. So basically, he's like, well, Fanning speaks to them in their dreams, and they're all like, they don't really believe him. So, well, no, actually, the colleague / security guard, he tells Fanning what they're about to do to Babcock. And we'll talk some more about that after this break.
Want to know the latest and hottest music hitting the airwaves? Don't be left out. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Music Podcast. Keith keeps you on the loop with everything you need to know from pop, rock, hip-hop, and the top 40. And we'll throw in news of your favorite artists, concert and tour dates, and so much more. Listen no further, because this is the gold standard in music podcast.
And once again, you're listening to Golden State Media Concepts Television Podcast. This is your Captain Keith. Oh, yeah. And we're talking about the new hit series, The Passage, on Fox Network. More of it, we're in episode 3, which is called That Never Should Have Happened to You. And we'll be talking about The Punisher Season 2 later on. Oh, yeah. So as I was saying, the executives had a meeting in the morning about that footage of Babcock killing the security jerk guard. He was a real jerk. And they're voting, and for whatever reason, it becomes a consensus that they're going to kill Babcock for what she did. They're going to incinerate her. So the colleague who she protected, and I wish I knew his name. I don't see it here. Let me see if I can find him. He's kind of funny too. Let me see real quick as I look. So I love to give you names when I can. Oh, so Anthony Carter, played by McKinley Belcher III, is the neighbor to Amy. And we'll get into that a little later, who's on death row. He's the most recent person they brought in right before Amy. And he's younger, too, young, strong guy who's on death row. So let me see, is it? Yes, Jason Fuchs. There we go. Okay, so that's who it is. He plays the colleague named Lawrence Gray. So he's kind of been mind controlled by Dr. Fanning, the patient zero, the head vampire. So Lawrence tells Dr. Fanning that, hey, they're planning on killing Babcock. So what Fanning does, he connects and contacts all of his people, his minions, in their dreams. He controls it. He can talk to them that way. Vivid dreams, and they know they're talking to him. So without even opening his mouth, he could be sitting there in his cell, his see-through cell, smiling at you, and he's telepathically communicating with his subject, with his hive, his nest, his vampire nest, or whatever you want to call him, his little vampire tribe. So he tells Babcock, hey, they plan on killing you. And Babcock's like, hey, I don't regret what I did to that guy. He's like, hey, I get it, but you need to have patience a little longer, and you need to realize you're more powerful than you think you are. You need to start using your power more. You need to convince Clark Richards, tell him your story, show it to him. Get him on your side. So Babcock smiles and she nods her head. She listens to what Dr. Fanning says, in the dream. And that's what she does. So here's what's cool about this show. It's like, we know about vampires. They can glamour people, which basically hypnotize them to do what they want, drink their blood, either decide to kill them or just drink enough blood where they don't kill them, have superhuman strength. Sometimes they fly, or they can be really quick and fast. So what we've never seen though, and then on the show they don't want you to call them vampires, but that's what they are. So that's kind of funny. Like, don't call them that. Even though they're drinking blood, don't call them that. So it's like they're trying to be politically correct with vampires. It's funny. But what's cool about this show is that we never seen vampires push their thoughts into your head or show you their world. So Babcock literally for this episode starts to feed Clark Richards, the guy who's the head of security, her story. And one of the first things we see, and it's also she can get him to empathize with her and stop her from being killed. So the first thing we see is 3 guards on the outside grounds. They're supposed to transfer her back to her room, and one guard's attempting to, try to rape her. So when Clark Richards sees that, he beats his butt and says, "What are you doing?" And he kicks the guy out of there. But I'm like, okay, that was cool. But the other 2 guys were there and they were watching, so they should be punished too. But that's on a side note. So he walks her back to her room, and he introduces himself to her. It's like, "I'm Clark." She's like, "I'm Babcock." So, and her name's Shauna Babcock, played by Brianne Howie, Howey. So they strike up a friendship. They talk. They get to the cafeteria, I think, and they talk. So at that point, he has a fondness for her because she hasn't fully turned yet. And I mean, she's been experimented on, but So that's how you can see where she liked him. And then either the second episode or the first, Clark Richards is sleeping with Dr. Sykes. And there's a dream sequence. I mean, they're in bed, and as Dr. Sykes motions to come over to him, her image gets replaced with Shauna Babcock's, which means that she's in his head. She's messing with him. So that's another reason why Clark is trying to get her killed, because he's just like, he doesn't want to think about her. But Shauna Babcock makes him think more about her. So that was the first scene. And then the next scene is you see her hanging out with the girlfriend, and she's taking photos. She's posing, and she's got blood on her forehead. And the girlfriend's like, "Are you sure about this?" She's like, "Yeah." And she's like, "These pictures look great." And you find out that Shauna wants to move to LA and become a special effects makeup artist. That's her dream. But you find out that she's got this mom who's just dismissive and just verbally abusive, and this stepfather he's a creep. He's a creep. And the next scene you see is, once again, is Shauna Babcock. She's feeding her life story to Clark Richards mentally. So he's seeing this. So he'll be like trying to get coffee, and he'll just be standing still because he's just in a trance, going over what's going on to her, what's happening to her. And he hasn't said anything to her, and he doesn't know that she's pushing her thoughts on him. So he goes and he gets Brad Wolgast, and he's asking him questions. So when you got Babcock, so he's like, "So what was going on?" It's like, "Oh, well, she didn't come from a good background. Not at all. Her story is very tragic. It's been nothing but a number of things that have happened to her." So we'll get back to that in 1 second. So before we address that part of their conversation, before we get to that part, the second scene that Shauna Babcock shows Clark Richards is, like I said, she's posing with her friend in her bedroom, for makeup, taking makeup photos with blood on her forehead because she wants to move to LA. She's been saving up her money. She's been working hard. She's been saving up thousands of dollars so she can get down to LA. And her mom knows this, and her mom's like, "You're not going to make it, whatever." So, but before we get to that part, they go to a bar to go hang out, to a nightclub and dance and have some fun, listen to some music. And Shauna sees one of her girlfriends getting like manhandled, by this guy. And she's like, "Hey, stop it." And, he's just being really aggressive. So Shauna was with some dude. She stops hanging out with this one guy, goes over to the bar. She gets a bottle off of a table or either off of the bar, breaks it in half where you can see the glass. You know where this is going. And she attacks the guy who was messing with her girlfriend, And so, and while she's doing that, and a fight ensues, everybody else starts hitting each other. The till's open to the bar. She opens the till to the bar register, grabs all the cash and runs out with her girlfriends. So, okay, so Babcock, she stole some money. Not a cool move. Not a cool move at all. They get away, or so you think. The next scene is her mom bailing her out of jail and bringing her home. And the mom is like, hey, what do you think you're doing? Why are you trying to get in trouble? What's wrong with you? And Sean is like, hey, don't worry about it. I'm going to be out of here soon. I'm going to go to L.A. And her mom's like, you're not going to L.A. You're not going to make it. You're not going to do anything but do what you're already doing. And Sean's like, thanks a lot, Mom. And she just goes into her bedroom. And then later on, you see the stepfather knock on the door, and he's trying to get in. And Sean's like, no, you can't come in, and Mom's not here. Leave me alone. And she closed the door on him. And you could tell something was wrong then. But I mean, and it gets deeper because you find out that what winds up happening is they're all supposed to be having dinner, I guess, and the stepfather says something kind of rude to Shauna, and Shauna snaps back at him, and he leaves the room, and Shauna Babcock's mom is like, what is wrong with you? He's a good man. And Shauna says, is he really? Do you really think that? She's like, yes, I do. She said, was he really good when he started coming to my room when I was 8 years old? And it happened till I was like around 16 or either 16 or 19. He would come every night, those visits. And the mom was like, well, basically she's like, you asked for it. And basically Shauna sees her mom for who she really is for the first time. And she's like, you knew and you didn't do anything to protect me? You're my mom, you're supposed to protect me, and you knew all this time? And her mother doesn't say anything. She's like, I love my husband. He's a good man. So Shauna snaps. She snaps because you're asking yourself, why is this nice young lady who wants to be a makeup artist, how she get on death row? Well, I'm going to tell you. So this is probably the most detail I'm going to get about this series because this is only the third episode in. I can't wait to see where it goes from here. But I'm eagerly waiting in anticipation. So Shauna snaps, takes a knife because the mom was making dinner, takes a knife off the counter, stabs her mom, like in the kidney or in the gut, I can't remember where. And the mom falls to the floor. Shauna proceeds to walk over to the living room where the evil stepfather who molested her is sitting watching TV with a beer in hand, and she kills him too. So now we know how she got on death row. So now we flash back to Clark Richards talking to Brad Walgast about Shauna because Clark sent Brad out to obtain and retrieve all of these prisoners, these death row inmates, to pitch the marketing spiel. Hey, you want to commute your sentence, be a part of a clinical trial, and you'll be free. You won't have to worry about your sentence anymore. You won't be on death row. You'll live. So, of course, who wants to be on death row? So, all right, and you got nothing to lose. So Clark is like, hey, what happened with Shauna Babcock? And he's like, yeah, man, it wasn't good. She, very sad and tragic story. And now when Brad comes into the facility now on the other side of things with Amy, he finally gets to understand and realize that all those prisoners that he obtained for Project Noah, he didn't know what they were doing. He probably didn't want to know. Ignorance can be bliss. He didn't know they were experimenting on him with, vampire blood. So Brad tells Clark it's all true. Everything has happened to her. Her stepfather was a piece of crap with a long rap sheet who abused her for years. So when he tells Clark this, Clark realizes that Shauna Babcock is not lying to him. She's not feeding him false memories. This was and is her tragic life. And she doesn't deserve to be incinerated for protecting herself and defending herself against a predator who is an abusive bully. So they go to, burn her, and they start the process. And then Clark stops it when he realizes, no, we can't do this. He saves Shauna Babcock's life. So Dr. Fanning was right in telling Shauna, show him your story so he can relate to you. Because in the end, we're gonna have as much human blood that we want to feast on. We're gonna be running things. So because she also told Dr. Fanny that when she killed the human that his blood tasted pretty good. It's kind of funny. Anyway, so Shauna Babcock, her objective worked. She got Clark Richards, who was this hardened guy, to empathize with her. He already liked her, but now he knows why she did what she did, and he doesn't blame her, so they stop her from being killed. So that's cool. And we're watching the story, and we feel bad for her because her mom didn't care for her. Her mom didn't love her. Her mom threw her to a predator who's her husband. What she did was wrong. You don't snap and kill your parents, matricide and step patricide. But, you know, when you watch that scene, you understand why she snapped. You do. So it was just really sad because it just seemed like she was just going to have just nothing more than a sadder ending. You know, this is a sweet young young lady who wanted to go to Hollywood to be a makeup artist, and she would have been pretty good at it too. So it's all interesting. Yeah, I enjoyed all of that. We'll finish up the passage after this break.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be, visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
And once again, you're listening to Golden State Media Concepts Television Podcast. It's your Captain Keith speaking. About to wrap up the new TV series, The Passage, on Fox Network. Great show so far. I'm digging it. So as I said before, so Shauna Babcock was able to convince Clark to stop her execution. So she's still here. Can't wait to see what happens to her. Now on the other side of things in this episode, Brad, like I said, starts to feel a little guilty because he realizes that, these people that he brought in, they're being experimented on like lab rats. So, he has more empathy now. His wife or ex-wife has been making phone calls from payphones because Brad disappeared, and she's worried. So she's calling about all the death row inmates who are at that facility. She's calling the prison asking about them, and everyone's hanging up on her except for one person who's like, oh, Shauna didn't die here. Some people came and took her. And I knew it was wrong, but there's nothing I can do about it. So Brad's wife / ex-wife, I'm not quite sure. They still might be married. She is played by, her name is Dr. Lila Kyle, played by Emmanuel Shrieky. I still don't know how to say her last name. It's a small name. It's not a whole bunch, but just the way it's spelled, Anyway, I'm sorry. Perhaps one day I'll meet her and she'll be able to tell me how to say her last name. That I would feel good about that, just to know. It's kind of bothering me. I have a thing about saying people's names right, so just because, I just do. Maybe one day, if you all meet me, good people of planet Earth in the known universe, I'll explain to you why. It's a secret. Well, anyway, so she's making these phone calls, and one person's like, oh, Shauna Babcock, she didn't die here. She wasn't killed. Some people came and took her, and we never saw her again. And I knew something was wrong about it. So Dr. Lila Kyle, Brad's wife / ex-wife, not quite sure, meets with a reporter who reported that Brad Walgeist is dead and that he killed some people at some gas station, which was a lie. Fake news. Yeah, apparently the president was right about that fake news is real. So, the doctor, she's like, no, that's not what happened. So she meets with the reporter. She tracks the reporter down in the street, And she's like, look, my husband wouldn't do this. He's a good man. I called on all these death row inmates, and they're all allegedly died or disappeared before they were supposed to get sentenced, except for this one. You don't believe me? Here's the information I have. Check it out. And the reporter's like, well, okay, I'll check it out. And if I find anything, I'll give you a call. So we'll see. So now they got the reporter looking on it. And then you find out that the lady who helped hide Amy and Brad in the second episode, we thought that she was killed because she got shot. But we find out that she's not shot. Her real name is Keisha Lewis. And on the show, she plays Lacey Antoine. So her and Dr. Lila Kala working together now because, before that whole shootout happened in episode 2, she was like, the whole world needs to know what's going on. So they're working together now. They got their heads together. So that's going on in the episode. So Brad doesn't know that his wife / ex-wife, or we're not quite sure, wife question mark, we'll call her wife question mark, is on the case trying to expose what they're doing. And, and let people know, hey, where do these death row inmates go? So that's, so the plot thickens in that regard. Brad sneaks out of his room, gets down to the basement. He follows Lawrence Gray to the basement, and what he does, he kind of knocks him out, but drags him to the security thing for an ocular scan, so he can get let into the facility, the secret facility. He walks in there, it's all dark, and then lights come on, and he sees Dr. Fanning in the cage. And that's how the episode ends. So he's about to find out about Dr. Fanning, Patient Zero, and how deep this whole thing really gets. So I'm excited. I love the show. It's going to be interesting. I like the chemistry between Brad and Amy. And it's going to be interesting to see what happens when the blood does start to take effect in Amy's system. Is she going to get superpowers? Will she be able to talk to everybody in their dreams where Dr. Fanning is? Will she be more powerful than him? And Dr. Fanning wants to meet her now because he wasn't anticipating that they were going to bring a child in and give her his blood. So I'm excited to see what happens. I like the show. Oh, and Amy strikes up a friendship with her neighbor, Anthony Carter, the death row inmate, who's next door, played by McKinley Belcher III. She writes him a little note, slides it under the door. Hi. He writes one back saying hi to her in crayon. And, they have a friendship. So, and she said to Brad earlier, the person next door has a real nice voice. I like him. So, everyone basically loves Amy if you get to know her. And it's just, this actress is great. She's doing a great job on the show. I like it, like I said, and between her and Mark Paul Gosselaar, great chemistry. I like the whole thing about vampires able to show you their life in your head, telepathically push their thoughts into your head. So it's like taking glamour to a whole new level. So she wasn't glamoring him; she was showing him her life. It was surreal. It's really cool. So I'm looking forward to seeing what happens because I get the feeling, because everyone thinks that Dr. Fanning and his clinical minions are all just kind of brain dead. They have no clue. They're all playing possum, people. They're playing possum. But you're going to find out. You will find out. But once again, that's The Passage on Fox Network. Great show. I definitely encourage you to check it out. Really cool science fiction. All right, and good people of planet Earth, now it's time to talk about The Punisher. Season 2, Netflix. Thank you for giving me Season 2 of Punisher, because, you broke my heart when you canceled Luke Cage, Iron Fist, and Daredevil. What's really going on? That was just kind of messed up, dude. Just messed up. So, where do we start? All right. Frank Castle. Let's talk about who Frank Castle is. Okay. Frank Castle, decorated Marine veteran, who was basically like a sniper. So here's the brief synopsis. After the murder of his family, Marine veteran Frank Castle becomes the vigilante known as the Punisher, with only one goal with only one goal in mind: to avenge them. And he did that in season 1. Yes, he did. Yes, he did. So it's John Bernthal plays Frank Castle, or Bernthal. He does an excellent job. John Bernthal was previously made famous from being in the Walking Dead series. That's where I first saw him, and he's been blowing up ever since. So where do I start? So you can imagine you're a loving husband and father, and you watch your family get shot to death in front of you. So, of course, a part of you, if not possibly all of you, is going to die inside. So now what you fail to realize is that you did this to a man who was an expert marksman, who never misses a shot, who may be the greatest shot on earth with a gun. So now if you take everything away from someone, when someone holds something very precious and you take that away from them and they still live, they're going to go one of two ways. They're going to crumble up and die, or they're going to be the scariest person you'll ever meet that you never want to come across. And I think you know who Frank Castle is. Now, mind you, I'm a comic book fan, so I grew up reading DC and Marvel. I usually lean a little bit more towards DC, but of course I was always a Spider-Man and Hulk fan. I got to tell you, I remember when The Punisher came out, I remember seeing his skull logo, and I'm like, who is this guy smoking, walking around with guns? And there's been 2 movies made on him. No, three actually. The first one was with Dolph Lundgren, and he wasn't able to wear the uniform. The second one was with Thomas Jane, and there's a third one, but I forget the guy's name for the third one. But I got to tell you, I'm a fan of The Punisher. He does what Batman and Superman won't do. And let me explain to you what I mean when I say that. Love Batman, love Superman, iconic superheroes and science fiction, household names. You see that logo, you know who it is. But here's the problem, here's the flaw with Batman. The Dark Knight refuses to kill. Okay, I get it. You're a vigilante, you don't want to kill. But you're arresting, super criminals, super villains who do kill. So if there's a guy who paints white makeup on his face and has a sinister smile, walking around with green hair, who's the ultimate sociopath, psychopath. So you think putting him in Arkham Asylum, so what DC does with the Batman storyline, just about every supervillain that he arrests, they all wind up in Arkham Asylum. Arkham Asylum is famous for that. It's basically a mental health facility for psychiatric treatment. So, and that's where they house the supervillains and try to rehabilitate them. So now here's the flaw of the Batman universe. When you have supervillains that kill people and you refuse to kill these supervillains, you just arrest them and put them in jail. And yes, that is the legal letter of law. I get that. But the problem is they always escape. And when they always escape, they always wind up killing more people. So in a sense, you're responsible for more deaths and murders because you refuse to take swift action. So certain supervillains who, and the Joker is somebody who basically he kills because he doesn't want to be bored. So that makes him, he may be the most dangerous supervillain that Batman's ever faced with no superpowers. That's why Heath Ledger's portrayal of him was amazing in The Dark Knight Returns. So the Punisher is not held up with that. He's not caught up on that. You're a bad guy, you're killing people, or you're selling drugs, and I'm going to kill you. It's that simple. No one's going to miss you. You made a choice. So now that you made a choice, I'm making a choice for you. You wanted to be on the wrong side of things. Now you're going to pay the cost. You're going to pay the price. So the Punisher is able to do things that the police force can't do. Is he the ultimate bad boy vigilante? In that regard, yes, he is. But here's somebody, they're criminals eventually start to fear, because they know, oh, he's not going out like that. He's not going to take me to jail. When you see the Punisher, you're going to ask him, please, just arrest me. Take me to... No arrest for you. You're going to die with these bullets right now. We'll talk more about Punisher Season 2 after this break.
Want to find out what movies to go see? Then check out the GSMC Movie Podcast. It's your ticket to the latest movies, whether it's a new blockbuster event, romantic, comedy, or action flick. This show has got it all covered. They talk some what to go see now, don't bother, what's hot on Netflix, and everything in between. That's gsmcpodcast.com/movie-podcast. When it's all about the movies, it has to be this new show. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit gsmcpodcast.com for more info.
And once again, you're listening to GSMC's television podcast. This is your Captain Keith speaking, talking about The Punisher Season 2 on Netflix. So, as I was saying before, Frank Castle, The Punisher, doesn't have a problem killing bad guys. Not at all. Now, he has a code. He won't shoot cops or women and children. So he does have a code. So, now, unless the woman is shooting at him, then that's different. So, but kids are a no-no, and cops he doesn't do. He does have a code. So now Season 2 opens up. It says, while driving through Michigan, Frank stops for a beer at a roadside bar, but staying out of trouble has never been his strong suit. He meets a nice lady who's a bartender named Beth. Beth was getting hassled by one of the customers at the bar, and I got to tell you, I got to imagine that it cannot be easy when you're, when bartenders are getting hit on from customers who are drunk, So Frank intervenes, stops it, doesn't expect anything in return. He just sits there at the bar drinking, and Beth gives him a drink on her for being so nice. He's like, well, he was a jerk. I don't like jerks and bullies. So that's cool. They strike up a friendship, and this kid comes into the bar. With the backpack, and she looks at Frank. She's like, "What are you looking at? Rough road." That's what she called him. And she doesn't recognize Frank. She doesn't know he's the Punisher. She's just kind of sassy at him, and he just kind of thought it was funny. So then the girl disappears. She makes a phone call. She's like, "I got the stuff. Meet me here and give me money." So the bartender Beth, who's real nice, and she's played by what's her name? Hold on, I'll tell you. I have it. It's like Alexa Davalos. She's the star of the Amazon Prime series, The Man in the High Castle. Give me 1 second where I find her. I'll make sure I'm saying her name right. It's a long list of cast members. Yes, Alexa Davalos. She plays Beth Quinn. So Frank meets her. Frank wasn't looking to meet anybody, and they hit it off. So he walks her to her car, and you find out that her car is kind of close to where she lives. And he's like, hey, it's nice talking to you, nice meeting you. And she's like, you're not a jerk, are you? Or... well, we'll use that word for PG's sake. And he goes, well, only a jerk would say he wasn't. And she gives him a hug and a kiss. And he's like, look, it's not a problem. I can just go home. It's nice meeting you. I'm in the motel over here. It's no big deal. And when she sees that he's not pressing up against her and he's being a gentleman, they get together and they hook up. And he tells her that his name was Pete Castellano. That's his cover name. But after they sleep together, and he just feels more comfortable with her, and they sit and just like hang out and watch TV, he tells her, hey, my real name is Frank. And because she sees all these scars and wounds he has on his body, and she's asking him questions about him. And he tells her, but he's like, yeah, my real name is Frank, and he's very truthful with her. It's like, I wasn't expecting to meet anyone, but you're really nice, and I like you. I don't want to lie to you. So they're hitting it off, very well. And before they hook up, she's like, I have a son. Is that a problem? He's like, no. Why would it be a problem? He's looking at her like, okay, you have a kid, and your point, well, kids are cool. So she's shocked because she meets this guy who's just really nice, who's strong and commanding. But he's just nice and it's a gentleman. And, she brings out the sweetness in Frank. And, Frank basically has his guard down. And he should with her because, it's hard to, when you face the type of family tragedy that he faced, I don't know if he ever really recovered from it. He doesn't talk about it. And John Bernthal is a great actor. His portrayal of Frank Castle, tough guy who doesn't speak much, very guarded, but very sincere and honest when he does speak. Yes. And, apparently when you're a Marine, you're always a Marine. So I got that impression. That's something that stays with you for the rest of your life. But that's probably with all the armed services, and I can dig that. So basically, he's digging Beth, and she's digging him. He meets her son because he's trying to leave, and the son comes in and sees him. And she tries to explain it to him, and he's like, hey, I'm hungry. He goes, you'd like to have some pancakes? And he's like, oh, yeah, I'd love to have some pancakes. And because they're talking. And Frank is bonding with her son. He's making an effort, Here's a guy who's known for killing all kinds of scum. And he sees this little boy, and he criticizes him for wearing the wrong hockey jersey. Because it wasn't the team that Frank likes. And they just start bonding. And Beth is like, you don't have to do this. You can just go. You don't have to, because she's used, because, most guys, she's like, oh, well, you got a kid, I'm out of here. No, Frank's like, no, your kid he sounds really cool. So Frank's like, hey, I'm dying to have some pancakes. Want to have some pancakes? And he's like, yeah, how about, hey, Mom, let's go get some pancakes. So they go get breakfast, and they're sitting, and Frank is bonding with her son and talking to him. And then the son realizes, he's like, hey, did you two have sex? Mom. And they get embarrassed. And he's like, I'm not a kid anymore. He goes, and it was a cute little scene. But Frank was getting a glimpse of what kind of life he could have, He could start a new family. And, of course, if you see your family get killed in front of you and you're not thinking about going there again. But this lady he met who's so nice and genuine and hardworking, who's supporting her and her son, he's bonding with them. So the next night, she's like, hey, I'll be at the bar working. He's like, okay, maybe I'll show up. Shows up to see her. And that kid who called him Rough Road earlier is in over her head. She's got some stuff that people want. They send people in it to kill her. When Frank sees that someone's messing with the kid, the kid's in the bath. They see the girl go into the bathroom. And the girl we're talking about, her name is Amy. And she's played by... Was it Gloria Wiggum? Let me see what they call her. Looking for her name right now. Oh. Yeah, Gloria Wiggum. No, I'm sorry. Excuse me. It's Georgia Wiggum. And it's spelled Giorgia. So, excuse me. Georgia Wigham. She plays Amy Bendix. So Frank sees that. All right, yeah. He's like, hey man, he makes up a lie about having to go into the bathroom to check on the kid, and they're like, no, you can't go in. Next thing you know, he starts fighting, and he fights his way into the bathroom to make sure the kid's okay. And then the bar fight, happens. And but before it happens, he's like, what's going on? Why are they after you? And the kid keeps trying to lie. He goes, you lying to me. Stop lying, kid. I know you got something going on. He's like, all right, fine. There's more of them out there. They're coming for you. And she's like, no, wait, I've got something that they want. And they're, she's like, all right. So then Frank starts fighting in the bar. He's taking them all on. And then Beth calls over her bouncer, whose name is Ringo. This big, tall, bald dude named Ringo is awesome. I love it. And Ringo starts getting in on the action, and he's helping Frank. And then, of course, these people start cheating, and they start shooting. And Ringo gets shot up and basically killed by some of the people. But Frank got shot, but Frank is still kicking butt. And then Beth pulls out a gun, and she shoots somebody too. But then she gets shot. So Frank winds up escaping the bar with Beth and Amy, and he's driving like a van or a truck. I can't remember. He's driving. He's like, we gotta get her to the hospital because he wants to make sure that nothing happens to Beth. Beth's got a kid and he cares about her. So they drop her off to the hospital, and he's like, he makes sure you take care of her. And they operate on Beth, and she gets saved. But Frank is gone. He's long gone. He's with Amy. He's like, what's going on, kid? You're not being totally honest with me. So basically, throughout the whole season, Frank Castle has to protect this young girl, this blonde-haired girl who's been on the streets, who's run with the wrong crowd, doing scams and things. And, initially she's just not feeling Frank, even though he's saving her life, because she's just on the defensive. And you find out in some flashbacks why she's on the defensive. So some traumatic things happen to her. And then eventually she finds out who Frank really is. And then other people in Frank's life from season 1, like Curtis, from his best friend, who's in the military with them. Curtis Hoyle is played by Jason R. Moore. He's a great character. He has like this Vets Anonymous session like Alcoholics Anonymous AA, where the vets get together and they talk about their trauma and what they're going through, and what life is like, just to make them heal. Curtis has one leg. He lost his leg in the war. Him and Frank are tight, and the third person they were tight with is Billy Russo. Billy Russo was Frank's best friend, Marine with Frank. They were like elite soldiers. All three of them served together. Curtis was in the Navy, but he was a medic, working with the Marines. So, Curtis's job was to fix people where Billy and Frank's job was basically to kill them and assassinate them. So Billy and Frank have a falling out in season 1. I'll just say that. So when we see Billy now, Billy doesn't have all of his memory. He's trying to remember things. He's having flashes and nightmares. That's happening. The people who are after Amy, John Pilgrim, played by Josh Stewart, he looks like he walks around like with a collar. He's part of this like religious group who live out kind of like the Amish, similar. This rich couple sends him out to do their bidding. They want him to retrieve what Amy has. And Amy's been on the streets using different types of aliases. So when we're watching the show, you don't really know that she's Amy for a while. And then there's the therapist who's treating Billy, who's in the hospital for because Billy, he's got memory loss. She's played by Floriana Lima. Her name on the show, she's a psychiatrist, Krista Dumont. Great character to watch. Her story unfolds and is very fascinating. And then there's Maldani, who used to date Billy Russo. She's been real jaded, and she, let's just say she's no longer a fan of Billy. And she thinks he's faking his memory loss. She's played by Amber Rose Riva, Dinah Madani. So when Frank and Amy get into a pickle, they get arrested in a small town. And Frank's like, you need to let us go. Otherwise, it's going to be bad. People are going to come. It's not going to be good. So his one phone call he gets, he calls, Madani. And she's like, I don't got time for it. So Frank's like, all right, oh well. So Frank just sits in the cell. Amy tells a story about how Frank saved her and kidnapped her all at once. She's kind of lying. She's telling the truth and she's lying at the same time. And she still doesn't realize how deep and severe her situation really is. It doesn't hit her to the the guy who's looking for John Pilgrim comes with a corrupt cop to try to get the prisoners taken over to his custody. And the sheriff is like, nah, something's not right. They're going to be arraigned on Thursday. So John Pilgrim and the corrupt cop leave the jail cell. I mean, they leave the sheriff's department. And you see John wave his hand like it's a go, because he's got all these like snipers waiting to take shots because they're going to take, the girl by force. And it gets really good. You get to see how the sheriffs handle this pressure. You get to see courage and bravery, and you get to see Frank in action. He's a one-man army as the Punisher. There's so much more I want to talk about this show. The season 2 was great. It might have been better than season 1. I really enjoyed it. There's more than one bad guy that the Punisher has to deal with, and I just really enjoyed it. I may talk some more about it next week. We'll see. But season 2 of The Punisher on Netflix, check it out with John Bernthal. He does an excellent job. Amber Rose Reva does an excellent job. Ben Barnes is Billy Russo. Jason R. Moore is Curtis Hoyle. It's just great. Josh Stewart as John Pilgrim. Floriana Lima as Krista Dumont. And Georgia Wickham as Amy Bendix. Excellent. The direction, the casting, the story, great. I'm praying for season 3 of Punisher. John Bernthal found his role. He is the Punisher. He's excellent. I like him, and you sympathize with him, and you see even though he's rough and tough around the edges, you still see there is a softness that he's still kind of hiding and guarding, and you get to see him bond with Amy throughout the season, and she realizes that he means a lot more to her than she. She's been guarded. They've both been guarded because of what life has done and how life has treated them. But they find a way to connect. And Curtis, he's just great. Great, good friend of Frank. He's Frank's only friend. I enjoyed the show. So good people of the planet Earth and the known universe, you've been listening to Golden State Media Concepts television podcast with Captain Keith. I hope you had a good time. I know I did. I appreciate you all. Thank you for listening. It means the world to me. And until next time, I'll see you somewhere out in space. And I got more shows for you. I got to still review Berlin Station. I told you about Beyond the Pole. I just started watching that. Oh, we're going to have fun with that. UMC TV, UMC.TV, I'm digging that streaming network. I'm loving all these streaming platforms. Still got to get to Bird Box. Still got to get to The Homecoming with Julia Roberts. Yeah, we got TV for days, people. For days. For weeks and months. Yes. But until next time, thanks again. And see you somewhere out in space.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts television podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts podcast network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts podcast network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.